Plated trainers have quickly become some of the most popular shoes on the market, and in 2024, I chose the Endorphin Speed 4 as my plated trainer of the year. That was before I tried the Wave Rebellion Flash 2. So how do these two stack up, and which one might be better for you? Let's break down these two shoes. This is the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Flash versus the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dadbod, and you're watching Rad Dadbod TV, where we review running shoes. Now today we're going to be breaking down two plated trainers against each other so that you can decide which one of these trainers might be the better solution for your running. Now, if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate it if you come back and watch the full thing as you get a sec, just because I put a lot of time and effort into these videos to make them as comprehensive and as educational as possible for each and every one of you. And if you've been watching my videos for a while, but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please do so now and consider turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But as of late, I have been dropping videos pretty much Monday through Friday to kick off 2025. Now, just to start us off, some quick disclaimers and disclosures, which are that I was provided the Endorphin Speed 4 from my local sales rep associated with my local running store, and the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Flash 2, I did receive a discount from that same running store. This is because I have created content for that running store in the past, but no one pays me to make these reviews. No one asked me to include these shoes in this comparison. No one gets to watch these videos beforehand, gives me talk tracks, anything like that. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of these shoes. Now the plated trainer is something that really hasn't been around for that long. In fact, it pretty much came around the same time as the super shoe for the most part. Essentially, the concept of these shoes is they are a stripped down version of the race day counterparts. So they're made to be a little bit less expensive, a little bit more durable, and a little bit less harsh so that you can withstand a lot more miles in them and do a lot of your bulk training in these to reserve kind of the magic of your super shoes for race day. Now, as such, these shoes typically come in a little bit cheaper than super shoes, and they tend to be faster than standard daily trainers. So you may see them called like a plated daily trainer, but I think that's a little bit deceptive in the way that is marketed, because these are not shoes that I would necessarily consider for daily use. They do have stiffening agents in the midsole, which can make them harsh for daily use. So typically these are the shoes that you're maybe breaking out for your speed workouts and maybe for your long runs as well, depending on the type of runner that you are. As such, that's how we're going to be talking about these two shoes today. Now, looking at the price of these two shoes, both of them come in at $170, which is kind of that mid to low end of the plated trainer price range. I think it's a fairly competitive and a fairly reasonable price given the versatility of this type of shoe. But yeah, both of them come in at $170. Occasionally this category can go all the way up to like $190 to $200-ish dollars. And so $170, while not budget, is a nice price point overall. Now from a spec standpoint, the Speed comes in at 8.3 ounces and 235 grams, and the Flash comes in at 8.4 ounces and 238 grams. So they're very, very similar in weight overall, very, very close. And these shoes tend to not be the most lightweight out there, but on the lighter side of shoes as they're made to go a little bit quicker. Moving to the stack, the Speed has a 38 millimeter heel, 30 millimeter forefoot for an 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. Meanwhile, the Flash has a 47 millimeter heel, 46.5 millimeter forefoot for a 0.5 millimeter heel to toe drop. So a little bit more stack, or a good amount more stack actually, in the Wave Rebellion Flash. Again, keep in mind that these measurements are taken from Running Warehouse, where they measure independently, and I believe that they are measuring from the tallest point in the shoe, as opposed to where on Mizuno's website they may actually be measuring from like the World Athletics standard point, where they may say that this is under 40 millimeters. I'm actually not 100% sure. Now from a fit perspective, I find that the Speed fits fairly accommodating. Lengthwise it's true to size, but it does fit almost wide. I don't know if I'd call it full wide, but the heel itself did get a little bit wide on me. Meanwhile, the Rebellion Flash fits pretty narrow overall, but I found the length to be true to size as well. So I'm a 10.5 in both of these, and I didn't feel a need to size up or size down. But again, the Flash is narrow throughout and the Speed is fairly accommodating throughout. Moving to the uppers, both shoes take a lightweight approach, but it's a little bit different. So the Speed is using what's called a zonal mesh, and it's very, very breathable. You can see that there is some general ventilation throughout the shoe, and then you have some nice cushion there in the heel. And while there is a structured heel cup, the upper itself is fairly, not flexible, but like a little bit minimal. Like it's made to clearly be really, really lightweight and breathable and not really suffocate your foot very much. Now it does have a fully gusseted tongue, which does aid in the lockdown, but I'll be honest, I did feel like I was sliding around a little bit in the shoe as I picked up the pace, but overall the upper was comfortable for the most part. Meanwhile, you have an engineered mesh over on the Flash, and it is also breathable, but it has kind of this dual layer, and it's a little bit thicker or almost plasticky of a material, so it's a little bit more rigid. It has a little bit more structure, and you do have a little bit of cushion there in the heel, but it's a much more firm and structured heel cup. The other thing is it is not fully gusseted, but because of its narrow fit, you do get better lockdown in the shoe, in my opinion, and it is necessary because that geometry is very aggressive. So if not for that lockdown, I do think you would shift around in the shoe quite a bit. So both have lightweight uppers, but a little bit unique in the overall approach of what that feels like for the most part. Moving to the midsoles, the Endorphin Speed has a Power Run PB, which is a PIBA based midsole throughout, and then there is a nylon plate that runs through the middle of that kind of dual layer PIBA midsole. So being full PIBA, the shoe is fairly soft overall. It's not squishy though. If you've ever used kind of a beaded PIBA, you'll know that it does compress underfoot, but it also holds its structure pretty good. And the nylon plate does a good job of giving it a little bit more structure and makes it a little bit rigid while still maintaining kind of a good flexibility through the heel to toe. I find that the Power Run PB is very responsive and very natural. It really kind of aids the foot, and the geometry of this shoe is built to kind of really ease you forward. So it's not a shoe that really punches or pops off the ground so much as it's a very smooth transition, very smooth ride. And so it feels really, really nice even when you pick up the pace. But I do think that it feels best when you are maybe going a little bit longer, and this is a phenomenal overall long run shoe. And it's also a reason why some people have found themselves using this as a daily trainer. Again, I just don't recommend using any type of plated trainer as a daily trainer, as for most runners that are fairly new to the game, it's gonna be a little bit harsh on your feet. But overall, I really like the midsole sensation. It's soft, it's responsive, it's not overly squishy, it gives you some good structure, and it's surprisingly stable for kind of this type of shoe, but definitely not a stability shoe by any means. Moving over to the Flash, you have Mizuno Energy Light Plus, which is a PIBA-based foam on top, and then you have just Mizuno Energy, I believe, there on the bottom, which is a TPE base, and you have a fiberglass plate that runs through, which is really similar to a nylon plate in terms of like how flexible it is. So you do have some flex, you do have some bend, but it's still gonna give some good structure to the shoe. I find that this is a little bit more punchy of a shoe. I still think it feels best on kind of moderate paces as opposed to more really, really fast paces, but I do feel like this feels a little bit more natural for like 200s and 400s compared to the Endorphin Speed. Now the feel underfoot, while responsive, is a little bit firmer, and this shoe, just because of like that unique shape of that midsole, is going to be unstable overall. So it's narrow and then kind of an interesting shape where it's really aggressive. And so that geometry, again, makes it unstable. So although this is a firmer ride compared to the Endorphin Speed, it is going to be a little bit less accommodating for varieties of foot strikes. Meanwhile, I do find the Speed to be very accommodating regardless of what your foot strike is. Moving to the outsole, you have the XT900 rubber in kind of that banded lattice pattern in the Speed, and then you have the G3 compound rubber just in a full coverage pretty much outsole there on the Rebellion Flash. So both of these outsoles have done really, really well for me actually, and I'm pleasantly surprised at the grip that they provide. I do think that the Flash could have maybe sacrificed a little bit of that outsole and saved even more weight, which would have been really interesting in the shoe, but the grip is phenomenal on the Flash. And same thing, I found that the grip in the Speed is really, really accommodating, and I didn't have any issues with either of them. And from a durability standpoint, both of them are holding up pretty well overall. The Speeds I do have about 50 miles on, while the Flash I have, I think, about 35 5 miles on. And again, no real concerns on the wear and tear for either of those outsoles. I think they're going to hold up. And both shoes still feel phenomenal overall, although I don't have like a ton of miles on them, if that makes sense. Both shoes feel very secure underfoot from a traction standpoint. Now, as far as which one's my pick, as I said at the beginning of the video, the Endorphin Speed 4 was my favorite plated trainer, or lightweight plated trainer in 2024, and I hadn't tried the Flash until 2025, but it is technically a 2024 release. I still think that this is my number 1 in rankings, and I'd have to go back, and I can't remember what I put as my number 2, but honestly, I might consider the Flash for number 2 because it just seemed to vibe really, really well with my foot. I think when I'm looking at these lightweight plated trainers, I'm looking at them more as marathon training shoes, right? So I'm really using them for the long run workouts. And I just think that the Endorphin Speed is so smooth on foot in that category and on those long runs, especially with like tempo and threshold paces and marathon paces. It just really, really works. But then the Flash is just really, really aggressive, though less aggressive than the Wave Rebellion Pro, but it is still a very unique overall shoe, and I think I could race like a 10K in it, but I don't know if I would go up to like the half marathon or longer distance in it for a race, and as such, that's why I kind of lean more towards the Endorphin Speed, if that makes sense. So it's a phenomenal shoe, and it is a really, really good option. I do think people should be considering it, but people might be scared away from the midsole geometry, or maybe they've just never given Mizuno a chance, but great, really, really good shoe. The Endorphin Speed, though, was like my second or third overall shoe in 2024. I just think it does such a good job all around on any types of workout, so it's hard to beat. So just some final thoughts. The plated trainer category, frankly, is very competitive, and every brand has a very interesting take on it. Some brands have kind of like more of a max cushion plated trainer and a lower stack plated trainer or lightweight plated trainer. Some of them just kind of have one that sits a little bit between the two. Some have kind of non-plated super trainers as well, and this category is just getting really, really crowded. So frankly, it's hard to kind of compare them, and some of them are just hard to put in the same category, to be honest. But overall, this category and this idea of a less aggressive training shoe that you can do your bulk miles in, I absolutely love. And so long as they're priced appropriately like these two, I think that they are really, really good options for a lot of runners, and can honestly be really good race options for a lot of runners if you're not really comfortable with carbon plated shoes due to their aggressive nature. So there we go. That's my comparison of the Endorphin Speed 4 and the Rebellion Flash 2. Now, if you stuck around this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, let me know in the comments what you enjoyed or what I could be doing better to make these comparisons even more comprehensive. And if there's another shoe comparison that you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. And if I have the shoes available to me and I've been putting miles on them, then I'd be more than happy to make that comparison for you guys as well. And if you haven't already hit that subscribe button and turned on notifications, please take a second and do so now. And with that, we'll just wrap up with a question as always, which is, do you utilize super trainers, or do you just kind of use your super shoes for speed work and long runs? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.